Craig Pasta Jardula is here by demand from one of my Locals viewers. So don't forget to sign up over at alisonmorrow.locals.com where you can pitch ideas for interviews. If you don't like this interview, blame the person on Locals. Don't look at me. I barely have time to do my hair. Okay, so Pasta, you are the host or co-host of AMWakeUp, and also the Convo Couch, and you talk a lot about election whatnots, election integrity. I think whatnots is probably a word I could still get away with on YouTube. And what I find the most fascinating about how you discuss it is, as you said before we went live, in the YouTube world, we're rife with censorship over this issue, or in mainstream media, which rarely wants to touch this in a meaningful way, unless it's like one of their candidates loses and then they just bitch about it, but there's never a solution offered. You talk about other countries and what they do right, even though here we're allowed to question other countries. Like, oh, we have to go in and overthrow their leader because look at this terrible election. But then here it's like, our elections are amazing. There are no problems with our elections. We can't question it on YouTube. It's if you do, you're an election denier, which is just like a vaccine denier or a right-wing extremist or whatever the thing is of the day. So as everybody watching on YouTube should know, we're cutting this short. So make sure you're either watching live on ROKFIN or Rumble. Where should we start? Should we start with the stuff that you do in other countries? We start there first.
Yeah, I mean, why not? And first off, thank you for having me on, Allison. You're my favorite right-wing liberal. Then, so it's always a pleasure to come on your shows. And that is a lot of the chatter that I face too as well, that Fiorella faces too as well when we hear these terms, because we do like to talk about elections, and unfortunately, it's taboo. I get your audience. Go ahead.
Can I cut you off real fast? I mean, just to show you how scary I am drinking coffee with superfood creamer out of an otter cup that has two otters holding hands while they sleep. I mean, how can I be so extreme? I don't know. I'm so scary, but I am.
I know.
And look at you, you're drinking out of a cup of soup. I mean,
yes, it says "get well." You know what I'm saying? It's the
yeah.
I think there's a little advertising there. Well, listen. The reason why, Allison, and the reason why you're such a threat is because you think for yourself, and that's what they don't want. They want people staying in line, staying in their boxes, staying in the team mentality. And a lot goes for elections. They don't want to talk about, the framework of elections and what's going on. They just want you involved with the chatter and the noise and the discrepancy and the red team, blue team fighting back and forth. So that's why, you'll get those nicknames. But that's why you're on ROKFIN. And that's why we're going over to ROKFIN and Rumble only, because this is the world we live in. And I'm just happy that you're with us now, or I'm with you, or whatever the case may be, or we're in the same spaces, because it does say a lot. And just when it comes to like elections, it almost mirrors what we're dealing with as independent journalists or commentators, whatever you want to call us, as far as the parameters and what we can speak about and what we can talk about and what lines we can or cannot go out of. So I would just say this much, that I got involved with election integrity. Mainly, I got deep into it in 2016 when the DNC lawsuit in Florida was brought up. And it was not by Bernie Sanders. It was from a bunch of Bernie Sanders supporters who were pushing back against the Democratic Party, in which they felt they didn't comply with the law because they didn't live by their charter. And their charter pretty much is plain and simple that it has to give a democratic process. There were a lot of irregularities, so a lot of people stood up and they brought this lawsuit forward. Well, in that courtroom, Bruce Spiva, who was a Democratic lawyer for the DNC, said if they wanted to, technically, the DNC can go in the back room full of cigar smoke and pick whoever they want. So that kind of radicalized me for elections, saying if this process isn't clean and fair, then what else is not clean and fair? Which eventually led me to go look at international elections. I had a lot of anti-imperialist friends who would go to these countries to observe the elections, but they weren't like election scrutinizers like me and Fiorella and Johnny of the Convo Couch were. So right now, as we stand after this election, we just got back from Brazil. We've been to 5 international elections. We got to observe a lot of what they do. We got to observe a lot of the efficiencies. And we keep bringing this question back to the American public, saying, hey, if Nicaragua and Honduras and Peru and Colombia can have clean, efficient, fair, and transparent elections and get the results in one day, then how come the US of A can't do that? And that's a question we're still bringing to the American people every day as we constantly go on these different shows and talk about elections.
Oh man, I hope that didn't trip the AI on YouTube. Well, anyway.
Oh man, see, I was trying to be good there. I was trying to be good. Did I mess up? Oh my God.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, we'll just say this much. When you're talking about the stuff that would lead you to make the statement that they have free, fair, and open elections, like what are some of the things that they do that you have noticed that you feel like is moving them in that direction? And I won't say versus someone else, some other larger country that's North America.
Yeah. Don't trip the AI. Well,
it celebrates a day on July 4th, or I don't know.
Hey, this is you now. So now you just absolved me for any issues. I'm going to point the finger at you. Well, here's something to think about.
Bastille Day. Oh no, that's the 17th.
Gotcha. All the holidays, right? Okay, so everything that I come back and I speak about is not my idea. I didn't invent it. This isn't like, wow, this popped into Pasta's head. This is something that he's bringing. He's bringing the solutions. A lot of the solutions are already there. A lot of the solutions have been talked about from the election integrity activists that I've been speaking to in the States for the past 4 years. There's been a time in American history where we have done things in these elections that they do overseas that are very efficient and work well. Why we don't do them today, that's for your audience to decide and you to make a decision on. But the things that we see over there is, number one, that there are two things that must be involved at all time. Number one, the public must be heavily involved. And the reason why the public must be heavily involved is that the elections belong to the people. They don't belong to the parties. And when the people are very heavily involved, the public's heavily involved, a lot more transparency takes place because there's a lot more eyes on the situation. Number two, a chain of custody must be in place at all times. And that's something we see when, for instance, in Nicaragua, when you go and see their elections, the chain of custody starts from the time the person walks into the room and gets their ballot. In other words, in each one of the rooms, everything's very compartmentalized. And in Nicaragua, each room has 400 ballots, so it can have up to 400 voters. You then have 5 members sitting around a table from multiple parties, so they're all different parties that are watching each other. And that chain of custody starts when they get in the room, from the time the person picks up the ballot to when he goes and fills it out, till he puts it into the drop box. That drop box and those ballots will stay there till when, at the end of the day, they'll be removed out by the team, and the public can witness the count. So more than anything, these countries have a strict chain of custody. And the chain of custody is defined as the tracking of all materials, whether it be banking, elections, whatnot, all tracking of the materials from the start of the process to the end of the process. Some other countries don't have the chain of custody. Some other countries, you don't know where the ballots are coming from, where they've been out of the public's eye. But that's the most efficient thing we've seen in these countries, is that everything is in front of them. Everything is in front of the public. The chain of custody is solid. So for any malarkey to happen, it has to get outside the chain of custody, and therefore you can identify where and when the problems are coming from. I don't want to use a certain word until we get off of YouTube. So it's with F and ends with D.
Okay. I want to ask you about, before we cut the YouTube stream, I want to ask you about why you really think at the end of the day the topic is so scary and the system is the way that it is. Because I guess one of the things I've learned as I've gotten into this alternative media world is it feels like, anyway, that the US is very good at surveilling and having a close eye on what it wants, like whoever it is that's in charge. Like they have no problem tracking, to an illegal degree, right? Tracking information that they want. So whenever I notice that they're like, well, we just don't have it, we just don't have this, or we don't have the information, like VAERS. I always look at VAERS and I'm like, well, why is VAERS the way that it is? I mean, if you could clean up VAERS if you wanted to, it's probably because you don't want to know about vaccine injuries. That would be my guess. Like, because you could figure it out if you wanted to. I mean, you figure out how to tap into our cell phones. You could figure out how to track that, but they can't figure out how to track this stuff. So that to me says you don't want to. So then my question to you is why, or why aren't we allowed to talk about it? Why is it so, so let's go into that in a second. But don't forget, everybody, if you know what, you want to talk about this topic or any other, one of my guests said one time, I thought this was a great idea. If you're scared to bring it up with grandma because she's going to just shove the turkey drumstick down your throat if you bring up elections or anything else, then the best way to do it is you go to Allison Wine Promo, you get one of my bottles of wine, and you're like, grandma, get her, a little bit, feeling good. She got a high altitude Malbec. She can't complain about the wine you're giving her. And then you'd say, you know what? Allison used to be in mainstream television news, and she just had this guy named Pasta on, which we're serving because we can't afford a turkey this year. And then you could talk to her about how this like very mainstream, corporate news reporter has crazy people like Pasta on. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
but you can talk about how like we talk about this stuff, and you can talk about it too. Because if you know what, if a bonehead like Allison can talk about it, you can talk about it, and you've got a great glass of wine to share over dinner. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get your 50% off my favorite Malbecs from Argentina. I don't know what their elections are like. What are their elections like in Argentina?
Well, we're going next year, so we'll be able to find out. That's on the dock. We got Cuba in March. We have Argentina, I think, in October. I think their election is. So we'll be able to go to Argentina and check out how their elections are. And you know what I'm going to do there, Allison? I'm going to do the sangria recipe. So, I mean, I have a ton. Listen, I'm not a sangria drinker. Most sangrias stink and stuff like that, but I have a decadent, rich, berry flavored, beautiful sangria where you can take all these beautiful wines that you get from AllisonWinePromo.com and you mix this mixture of all these berries of like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries that you deseed, and you let it sit with Cointreau, which is an orange liqueur. And then you mix that with the red wine and you let that sit overnight, and all that together, all that happiness will blend in and mix in, and you will have the best sangria possible. And it's amazing. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I had never thought about making sangria with it. Well, will you share your recipe with us?
I will. Okay. It's very easy to make. If you have a bullet, it's even easier to make it. Like, the little grinder things. Yeah.
We do. We have one of those. Okay, sweet. I had not thought about that. I thought about maybe trying like spiced wine, mulled spiced wine. I don't know how Malbec does with that.
When I give you my sangria recipe, it's so easy, and you have it. You're going to want to have it all the time. I'm not a sangria drinker, but like I said, all those decadent berry juices that are deseeded, you got to sift it out. It's a little bit of a process. It's easy. But when you mix it with that orange Cointreau and you let it sit together and coagulate with that red wine, holy cow, Allison, it's so great.
Okay, I'm very excited about this. Thank you for bringing that up as an idea. All right, so you got that one for Allison Wine Promo. Again, you get 50% off the wine and 50% off shipping. But I don't know, if you're drinking all that sangria the next day, you're probably going to need some coffee. So get some organic coffee from twinenginecoffee.com/Allison. These are Nicaraguan. We've already talked about Nicaragua and their elections. You get 10% off the roast, and they've got light roast, dark roast. I got to order some more of this honey bear. This is one of my favorites. I also drink the cigar number one a lot, which is one of the dark roasts. Though people tell me that if you have like a really astute palate for coffee, you drink medium roast, whatever. I'm not trying to pretend like I know any of this stuff, right? But I like it. I think it's good. I think it's good.
I brought some coffee home from Nicaragua and some cigars. Woo! Some good stuff. Good stuff.
It is.
Not only are the cigars the best, their coffee's the best, their elections are the best.
See? Sorry. Okay, I'm glad that I got some sponsors worth something. Anyway, you can also get some tea, Katura tea. I make kombucha out of it. This is like a black tea. It's also very good. So twinenginecoffee.com/Allison, AllisonWinePromo.com. And all right, so let's get to that question. Tell me about.
Are we staying here? Are we leaving YouTube?
Well, do you think you can answer that question on YouTube, or do you feel like you should?
Not at all.
No. Okay. No, all right. Well, it was really nice.
I don't want to, because then it would be like, listen, right now we're shifting the blame back over to you. You mentioned VAERS. So like, I feel like completely out of the blue, like this is not me. But if I mention why they're not fixing these problems, we will. Yeah, it would be like, so.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, don't forget, join my locals community, alsamaro.locals.com. We got a live chat going on right now. So we're going to throw some questions over at Pasta too in a second. That's the value of joining over there. You get to put questions in ahead of time for interviews. It was nice knowing you all on YouTube. It's not you, it's us. Goodbye.